A Tangled Web of Hearts, Chapter 1, An Unexpected Invitation. Lena sat at the kitchen table, the early morning sun casting a warm glow through the window. She sipped her coffee, trying to shake off the lingering fatigue from a restless night. Her husband Mark had left early for work, leaving her alone with her thoughts. The peace was interrupted by the sharp ring of her phone. She glanced at the caller ID and saw it was her mother-in-law, Patricia. "Good morning, Patricia," Lena greeted politely, though she felt a knot form in her stomach. Patricia rarely called without a reason. "Lena, dear," Patricia's voice was unusually sweet. "I wanted to invite you and Mark over for dinner tonight. It's been too long since we've all been together." Lena hesitated. Patricia had never been particularly warm toward her, but she couldn't refuse. "Of course, Patricia, we'll be there." As Lena hung up, a sense of unease settled over her. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. Chapter 2, The Gathering Storm. That evening, Lena and Mark arrived at Patricia's home. The air was thick with tension as they stepped inside. Patricia greeted them with a forced smile, her eyes flicking nervously towards the dining room. "Please come in," she said, leading them to the table. Lena's heart skipped a beat when she saw who was sitting there. A young woman, visibly pregnant, with a nervous smile on her face. Mark froze, his face draining of color. "Mom, what's going on?" Mark's voice was barely a whisper. Patricia took a deep breath, her eyes hardening. "This is Emily," she said, gesturing to the woman. "She's carrying your child, Mark." Lena felt the ground shift beneath her. She turned to Mark, searching his face for any sign of denial, but found only guilt. "It's true, Lena," Mark admitted, his voice breaking. "I made a terrible mistake." Chapter 3, Shattered Illusions. Patricia's voice cut through the silence. "Lena, this can't go on. Emily and the baby need Mark. You need to give him a divorce." Lena felt a surge of anger and betrayal. "You think you can just decide that for me?" she demanded. "This is my marriage, too." Patricia's expression hardened. "I know it's not fair, Lena, but we have to think about the baby. Emily deserves a chance at a happy family." Lena looked at Emily, who sat quietly, tears streaming down her face. She felt a pang of sympathy for the young woman, despite her own pain. "Mark, do you want to be with her?" Lena asked, her voice trembling. Mark looked torn, his eyes filled with regret. "I never wanted to hurt you, Lena, but I can't abandon my child." Chapter 4, The Fallout. The days that followed were a blur for Lena. She moved through her routine in a daze, her heart aching with every passing moment. Mark moved out, and the house felt emptier than ever. She struggled to comprehend the betrayal and the sudden upheaval of her life. One evening, Lena sat alone in the living room, the silence pressing in on her. She reached for her phone and called her best friend, Sarah. "Sarah, I need you," she said, her voice cracking. Sarah arrived within the hour, her face a mix of concern and determination. "Lena, you don't have to go through this alone," she said, pulling her friend into a tight embrace. "We'll get through this together." Chapter 5, Confronting Reality. Lena decided to meet Emily. She needed answers, and she needed to understand the woman who had unwittingly become a part of her life. They agreed to meet at a small cafe. Emily looked up nervously as Lena approached. "Thank you for coming," she said softly. Lena nodded, her emotions a tumultuous mix of anger and empathy. "I need to know how this happened," she said, her voice trembling. Emily took a deep breath. "It was a mistake. Mark and I met at a work event. We didn't plan for any of this to happen. When I found out I was pregnant, I didn't know what to do." Lena listened, her heart breaking for both of them. "And now?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Emily looked down. "I just want what's best for the baby. I don't want to come between you and Mark, but I can't do this alone." Chapter 6, A Heartbreaking Decision. The legal proceedings were swift but excruciating. Lena and Mark agreed on a divorce, both understanding it was the only way forward. Lena watched as her marriage dissolved, feeling a mix of sorrow and relief. One evening, Lena found herself sitting on the porch, watching the sunset. Mark approached, his expression somber. "I'm so sorry, Lena," he said softly. "I never meant for any of this to happen." Lena nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know, Mark, but it's time for us to move on." They shared a long, bittersweet embrace, both knowing it was their last. As Mark walked away, Lena felt a strange sense of relief. The pain was still there, but so was a glimmer of hope. Chapter 7. Picking Up the Pieces. In the months that followed, Lena focused on rebuilding her life. She threw herself into her work, finding solace in her career. She leaned on her friends and family, drawing strength from their support. She started therapy, finding a safe space to process her emotions and begin healing. One day, she received a letter from Emily. It was an apology, heartfelt and sincere. Emily expressed her regret for the pain she had caused and thanked Lena for her understanding. Lena realized that holding on to anger would only hurt her more. She decided to forgive, not just Emily, but herself as well. She deserved happiness, and she was determined to find it. Chapter 8. Embracing Change. Years later, Lena stood at the edge of a beautiful garden, watching a group of children play. She had found love again, with a kind and understanding man named Alex. They had built a life together, one filled with joy and laughter. As she watched her own children run around, Lena felt a deep sense of peace. She had survived the darkest moments of her life and come out stronger on the other side. Her phone buzzed with a message from Mark, who had remained a part of their children's lives. He was happy too, with Emily and their child. They had all found their paths, winding and difficult as they were. Lena smiled, feeling the warmth of the sun on her face. She had learned that life was unpredictable, but it was also beautiful. And in that beauty, she had found her strength. Chapter 9. Building New Bonds. Lena's life continued to blossom in unexpected ways. She and Alex opened a small art gallery, a dream she had long harbored, but never had the courage to pursue. The gallery became a sanctuary, a place where she could express her creativity and connect with others. One day, as she was arranging a new exhibit, she received an unexpected visitor. Emily walked in, her now toddler daughter in tow. "Lena," Emily began, her voice hesitant, "I wanted to thank you for your kindness and understanding. You've shown me what true strength and grace look like." Lena smiled warmly. "We all make mistakes, Emily. It's how we move forward that defines us." Their relationship, once fraught with pain and betrayal, transformed into a tentative friendship. They supported each other, bound by their shared past and their mutual desire for their children's happiness. Chapter 10. A Full Circle. Years turned into decades, and Lena's life, once shattered, was now a mosaic of experiences and relationships that had shaped her. She watched her children grow, her gallery flourish, and her heart heal. On a warm summer evening, Lena sat on her porch surrounded by friends and family. Mark and Emily were there too, along with their children. The past had not been forgotten, but it had been forgiven, and they had all found a way to coexist peacefully. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Lena felt a deep sense of contentment. She had faced heartbreak and betrayal, but she had also discovered resilience and joy. Her journey had been anything but easy, but it had led her to a place of profound fulfillment. In that moment, surrounded by laughter and love, Lena realized that life, with all its twists and turns, had brought her exactly where she was meant to be.